Okay, welcome back. I am Val Christine. Welcome to the Val Christine Show. If you have seen any of my shows or if you haven't, this is going to be the most important show that I have made so far. So if you watch anything of mine on this show, please let it be this episode. I thank you so much for subscribing because I am dealing with some shadow banning and just issues with Meta. So having you over on this platform, over on my show, really helps a lot with continuing my ability to keep going and share information with you. I would also like to invite you to visit my shop at AmericanEliteForce.com. You can see my t-shirt right behind me. So it's American Elite Force is the brand, and then Honor Heritage is the collection that I have out right now. And it goes along with the theme of the conversation today, which again, I think is really, really important. I don't see anyone really discussing this topic in this way. I think that if people if people were more open to this discussion, it would really help heal where we were at in the world right now. I don't think that the government wants us to heal in this way, but I do think that this is the most humane and Christ-like approach to the controversy that we're seeing today. I do think that the controversy that we're seeing today is on purpose. I think it is planned. I think they like keeping us in these sort of like attacking modes and hateful modes when it really is so much more simple. So I'm going to break that down today. We're going to discuss that. And hold on, let me I've been talking a lot. Okay, I'm going to jump into it. This is something that I prepared. I'm extremely excited to film this. Rethinking racism from historical ideology to rational pattern recognition for self-preservation. So in today's world, the word racist gets used very quickly. People who take pride in their own culture notice clear statistical patterns, or they simply want to protect their families and their communities. They often get labeled as dangerous extremists right away. This quick labeling without full context does not bring people together. Instead, it creates more anger, more separation, and more distrust between groups. What if we could imagine and examine these topics in a calmer and clearer way? Many people see racism only through its negative historical associations, such as policies under Adolf Hitler. But when we reframe it as evidence-based pattern recognition that uses verified group-level statistical differences as starting probabilities, while also judging each person as an individual, it can serve a practical function that reduces harm. This brings together historical context, clear definitions, real-world data, and logical reasoning. It shows that a careful, non-hateful form of pattern recognition can support reason, safety, and human well-being. It separates useful realism from harmful collectivism. Adolf Hitler and National Socialism represent one of the clearest historical cases of racism built directly into a political system. Nazism combined strong nationalism, extreme ethnic loyalty, and authoritarian control eugenics called racial hygiene and pseudoscientific ranking of races, with Germans placed at the top. Racism was a central part of the system. It supported expansionist policies, forced sterilization, and large-scale population controls. These ideas contributed to World War II, which still influence how racism is discussed today. The conversation around racism has grown more complex. The traditional definition focuses on beliefs in racial superiority and unfair treatment of others. A more practical view treats it as pattern recognition, noticing real group averages such as differences in crime rates or cognitive performance. These patterns can guide decisions when complete information is missing, while each individual is still judged by their own actions and character. This examines whether this practical approach offers real value for protection and safety without requiring hatred. Defining racism and why it faces critical racism is usually defined as the belief that humans form distinct biological races with fixed differences in traits or worth, often leading to prejudice or unfair actions. Major dictionaries, such as Merriam-Webster and Britannica, describe both the belief in superiority and the discriminatory behaviors that follow. Critics highlight several consistent problems with stronger forms of racism. It assigns different value to people based only on ancestry instead of their personal behavior and achievements. It often exaggerates differences between groups while ignoring that most human genetic variation occurs within groups rather than between them. Many early claims presented as scientific have later been shown to lack evidence. It has been connected to historical events, including slavery, segregation, and episodes of mass violence that damaged social trust and wasted human potential. These criticisms mainly address extreme or blanket uses of race. They do not automatically rule out simple recognition of statistical patterns. Real-world patterns, differences in skills, crime, and behavior, repeated data from many sources show average differences between population groups. Cognitive ability measured by IQ, which strongly predicts success in school and work, shows group averages. Examples include East Asians, often around 105, white Europeans around 100, and African Americans around 85 in United States studies. These gaps appear in real outcomes and show moderate heritability within groups, although environment plays a significant role and causes between groups remain debated. Crime patterns, especially violent crime, show large disparities. United States FBI and Bureau of Justice Statistics data indicate that Black Americans, who make up about 13 to 14% of the population, account for roughly 50 to 55, arguably more percent of known homicide offenders in many years. Their per person rate is about 7 to 8 times higher than for whites. Most of this crime occurs within the same group and connects to factors such as family structure, impulsivity, and neighborhood conditions. These are group averages only. People in every group live lawful and productive lives. Noticing the patterns does not mean treating every individual the same. Ignoring these patterns for ideological reasons has sometimes led to worse results, such as increased crime in some cities after 2020. Genetic ancestry, bloodlines, and the future of human groups. Noticing patterns naturally leads to broader questions about genetic ancestry, bloodlines, and their role in health, intelligence, and long-term societal outcomes. Medicine already relies on ancestry. Certain conditions appear more often in specific populations, such as sickle cell trait among those of sub-Saharan African descent, Tay-Sachs and Ashkenazi Jewish lines, and cystic fibrosis in European ancestry. Precision medicine, drug matching, and organ transplants all work better when ancestry is taken into account. Studies of mixed race individuals often show they fall between the averages of their parents rather than always reaching the higher performing side. This points to partial genetic influences working together with environment. These observations raise factual questions about the future as global mixing increases. Does widespread interracial reproduction preserve adaptive traits developed over thousands of years or reduce them over generations in areas such as health, cognitive ability, or social cooperation? The evidence is mixed. Some findings show benefits in physical traits, while others note higher risks for certain disorders or loss of group-specific adaptations. These questions about genetic ancestry, bloodlines, health, outcomes, cognitive differences, and long-term effects of mixing are fundamentally empirical issues, not moral ones. They deal with measurable realities that can be studied through genetics, medicine, and population data. Labeling such questions as hateful or taboo blocks honest scientific discussion and informed decision-making. Just as we openly examine risk factors for cancer or diabetes, society should permit open inquiry into ancestry-related patterns. Reflexively shutting down these talks does not remove the underlying realities. It simply leaves important questions unanswered and creates hidden resentment instead of clear understanding. Discussions like these often receive the label eugenics in the same way pattern recognition receives the label racist. The word eugenics carries strong negative associations from past forced programs. Yet, many everyday voluntary practices such as genetic counseling and prenatal screening are widely accepted today. The parallel is useful. Broad racism accusations can stop practical safety thinking. Similarly, the eugenics label can prevent honest conversation about long-term genetic consequences of personal and policy choices. We can discuss preservation of beneficial bloodlines versus unrestricted mixing while protecting individual freedom and avoiding any forced outcomes. Using patterns wisely without hate. When full information is missing, rational people use group averages as an initial estimate, then quickly update based on the specific person they encounter. This is standard risk management, similar to how insurance works or how parents choose safer environments. It's not hatred. This method supports personal safety in uncertain situations, more effective policies that lower overall crime and help all communities. Decisions that still center on each individual's actual skills, record, and character. The goal remains protecting oneself, family, and community without denying rights or humanity to others. It combines natural caution with reasoned judgment. Rules to keep this approach fair and useful. To remain helpful and responsible, this method must follow clear guidelines. 1. Base everything on repeated transparent evidence, not personal stories. 2. Treat patterns only as starting points and always update with new individual information. 3. Keep it defensive and neutral without hostility. 4. Rely on direct personal data such as test scores, work history, or behavior whenever it is available. 5. Always respect rights, opportunities, and moral worth as belonging to individuals rather than entire groups. Breaking these guidelines turns the approach back into traditional harmful racism. The Nazi era shows a historical example where racial thinking became the central organizing principle of a state that placed group categories above individual reality. That case is frequently cited today. However, treating every reference to group patterns as identical to that extreme example narrows our understanding. When used carefully as disciplined statistical discrimination for protection, while always judging people by individual merit, pattern recognition serves as a practical tool for decisions under uncertainty. It reduces measurable harm, improves resource use, and stays aligned with available evidence. Societies work best when they combine respect for universal human dignity with honest attention to observable differences. Refusing to acknowledge documented patterns creates problems just as overusing supremacist ideas does. A mature approach welcomes careful pattern recognition as one useful tool for safety and future planning. Continued research into the cause of group differences and effective responses will support better policies. This perspective moves beyond shouting labels towards clear evidence-based thinking. It allows us to see people as individuals while still noticing real and measurable patterns in the world. Okay, that is the end of my presentation. I think something that we need to consider when we are going about discussions online, because I see people so hastily leaving comments when they don't quite understand context. A saying that I really like and try to live by is seek first to understand rather than to be understood. So before we jump quickly into judgment, I think it would be extremely powerful for your character if you step back and ask questions before vocalizing hatred. And that's something that we're losing sight of. We have a growing number of the population that wants people dead for disagreeing with them. When you jump first to label, accuse, and judge someone rather than ask questions and have conversation, you're playing into degeneracy, and it's making society turn into Sodom and Gomorrah. We are still human. And I think that when you step back and you ask critically with civility what someone's intention is, or like where they might be feeling that day, maybe someone's a little bit more heightened emotionally, and then they might have reactions that you don't quite understand. I think it's valid for people to have reactions. I think it's a very heightened state that we're living in right now. And I think it's on purpose. Government wants to keep us in a heightened state of volatility, and they're intentionally spraying our skies to make us more angry. We aren't sleeping as well. Our health is declining significantly. But if we can step back and have a little grace, there are days where I'm a little bit more, I like to say, just like popping off, or when you're having, people like to call it a crash out, like a valid crash out, right? How did we sleep? How did we sleep? Are we really frustrated that day? Did we encounter a lot of frustrating things? Like, there's a lot that leads to frustration. I don't see a problem with someone being frustrated. I personally appreciate the honesty. I think that authenticity of someone is fantastic. However, not understanding how to utilize your frustration or hatred then breeds this resentment and hatred that ends up being like a very evil version of it, rather than this righteous anger that I think we should all learn to harness. So I have been talking a little bit more about that, and I wish and pray and hope to God that people can learn to have grace and to not see someone's crash out as such a negative thing. I try to show myself and all versions of myself on here authentically, because I think it's important to show and highlight humanity in that way. I might come on here more frustrated and maybe using more foul language one day, and then on a day like today, it's different. I don't have that message. I don't have those feelings. I'm not heated like that. But I'm able to control my cognitive awareness, my feelings a lot better than I think most people are. And so we need to learn to adapt to one another and these differences without first turning to volatility and hatred. That is the goal. If I can somehow have some impact, for instance, sometimes I do utilize my platform for satire or for just basic, like making someone laugh. Having humility or having the ability to use humor to decrease this heightened level of frustration is such a powerful and wonderful thing. I'm able to do that. I'm able to take an everyday conversation and relate it in a humorous way that deflates someone's frustration in today's society rather than placate it. It can be viewed in that way. Someone can very quickly take something that I have to say and spin it in a negative light when it was never intended for that in the first place, and misunderstanding things like sarcasm, satire, dark humor, etc. is more so a slight on that person than it is on someone that has the ability to understand those things. So I actually pride myself in having the ability to understand dark humor and to find the lightheartedness in so-called racism because it's funny. You don't need to place so much power on something that you can actually see. A lot of people think it's funny. It can be funny. You need to learn to laugh at yourself because literally everything that I say or do on my account is not geared or focused on one specific person or group. Like, I'll go after everybody. And that is the same thing as a comedian. They'll use themselves as a butt of their joke so quickly, just as quickly as they can utilize someone in the audience. So it's really unfortunate today how misunderstood people are simply because they either don't understand social norms, or they're just uneducated, or their inability to have cognitive awareness, cognitive dissonance is a big factor, and we need to look more into the definition understanding of metacognition. I did do an entire episode. I did an entire episode on cognitive dissonance and metacognition. Metacognition is quite literally the ability to think about your thinking. And unfortunately, so many people today are unable to do that. Somehow the social awareness and the like, you can see someone who clearly, oftentimes in society, and I think it's more often than not, we're seeing people that have the inability to understand social awareness. They're unable to read someone just because they truly just don't get it. And that shouldn't be placed so heavily on us when we understand something that you just don't understand. That's where you end up with these Karens, right? It's like, oh, come on, Karen. Where do we get this idea of a Karen? A Karen is someone that might be just an absolute bitch and, a pain in the ass, and or these liberals that have this emotional reaction to things just simply because they lack the ability to understand outside of their own thinking, outside of their own awareness of reality. When reality could be something completely different. It could be so much lighter than you're making it. And it can be so much more loving. So I've noticed with my following online that I have a very diverse group of people. Statistically, I do see the numbers. I'm seeing the age group, and it's a lot of different types of people. I do see some of the white supremacists on there, and then I see different ranges of that, like different age ranges of that, different social constructs. I see people that are more like neutral as far as like politically, or they're just unsure. I see people that may be leading towards more MAGA. I don't support any of those ideologies. Like, for me, I'm trying to educate people while utilizing my awareness socially that I think would benefit people on a large scale. It's unfortunate, however, that we are run by systems that are not in place, or they're not very forgiving. Government, law, court systems, school systems, etc., are very manufactured and designed purposefully to have a certain controlled outcome, and breaking that construct is extremely difficult to do because we, the people, are trying so hard to break the narratives like I am today. Everything that I said today could easily be viewed as an extremist point of view, even though I'm so rationally placing this in front of everybody. I mean, you could be left leaning, right leaning, in the middle, absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter. This is a very human topic today. I'm going to leave this here with you today, and I would like to expand on this more in another episode. But for today, I want to leave you with a prayer. Not so much a normal prayer, but just the idea that we can speak things into existence, right? So something that I would like for you to keep on your mind when you are online is, how is this comment beneficial? How is this comment going to help? Is it leading to conversation? Is it asking a question? Are you being civil, or are you simply stating something in order to disrupt? I think that my following is generally extremely civil. We have adult, mature conversations, and we do treat each other with dignity and respect. We will, however, call out the so-called retarded narratives and people that have absolutely no social norms, just due to frustration, I think. But I'm very forgiving when it comes to people. I think that we know that there's so many bots online, and a lot of the hateful comments I get, I just kind of let it roll off my back, because it's like oftentimes it's no one with a face. Sometimes it's faceless. Sometimes people are just really rotten, and I can see that it's not a bot, and that's just unfortunate, But I don't have any hate for you, and I guess I just want to leave that. I just want to leave that as my lasting little impression for today's episode, of just mindful awareness in your thought and your commenting, your speech. I don't think that I am perfect. I definitely don't think that. I think there's days where I'm like, whoa, how is someone going to take that? Luckily, I think that my following generally understands me, my personality, my intent, and I'm very, very, very supported, and it's very mostly like very positive, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. I'm really hoping that this episode is the one that takes off. So please like it, share it, and subscribe. I think that this is a really, really important one today. So thanks for listening. Have a wonderful day. I'm sending out all the love for my beautiful people.